Well, hello everybody and bright blessings. Lady Leeanna here for another episode of Eclectic Spirituality. And today what I want to talk to you about is preparing your ritual circle, erecting the temple, which is very, very important with any witches today or yesterday. Waiting to see if anybody will join us within the chat room today, and then we'll get started. Let's see. And we are live. Alright. Hello and welcome. Brightest blessings. This is Lady Leeanna for another episode of Eclectic Spirituality. And today what I would like to talk to you about is erecting your temple, preparing your circle before any ritual for either inscribing candles, creating talismans, etc. You've been missing out, have you? Well, it's good to have you today, David. Welcome to our channel. It's good to see you. And for all of you others who have joined who have not yet spoken of yet, and we're just getting kicked off, I thought this would be a really good topic for today. A very important one, at least, because it's what you have to do before actually doing your rituals, before getting everything off the ground. Are you hearing me okay? Is everything coming through? Is the stream picture pretty good? Because I cannot tell. I can't see the stats on this. Let's see. And I'm wondering if we're going to have many viewers today, because it is Sunday and it is an uncharted topic. It's not something that I put out there that I was going to be doing today. And so not a lot of people know about it. But if not, that's fine. I will do the video and talk to the few that do come. Anyway, so have you been practicing for a good while, David? What pathway are you on? And there is a delay here from the time I speak to the time you get it, to the time you say something and it comes back to me. So it could be a good period between talks. There isn't many people showing up, it looks like. The Doodaloo. Welcome to our channel. Welcome to the live stream. And what pathway are you practicing on? The Doodaloo. Doesn't seem like we're going to have too many people participating today, which is very rare. I mean, I've never had it under 16 people. I mean, within the first 5 minutes. I mean, so it's pretty weird. It is Sunday though, and I didn't tell everybody I was going to be doing this stream today. Anyway, so welcome to the show. And y'all are both new. Actually, I've not seen you in the room before. Not to my recollection, anyway. I'm Lady Leeanna. Have y'all watched any of the videos that I've got out there presently? Hello. Number 3. Welcome to the channel. Lisa, how are you doing today? Not many people on today, and no one's really talking at the moment. It's good to see you. How have you been? It don't seem like there's going to be a lot of participants in today's live stream, so it might be well. I mean, this is a pretty important topic also, quite a lot of information that I have for this, and I'm wondering if I shouldn't reserve it for, say, tomorrow, whenever more people would tend to be online. And I keep saying Sunday, but it is Saturday today, isn't it? Today is actually Saturday, and I keep saying Sunday, and it is an unscheduled day, an unscheduled live stream. I wasn't preparing people for this particular one, but important information, and I thought I would jump right in. Wiccan and Native American medicine, that's cool. So basically, shaman, would you say? Wiccan and Native American, so we're basically on the same paths in a lot of ways there. Yeah, usually we have a lot more live stream viewers here, and it's just probably slow and kicking off. You never catch me live, huh? Well, a lot of times it's just kind of random whenever I get the mood, to live stream, and then I come out with the best information that way rather than scheduling it week for week. Although we do have 2 scheduled days, and that would be Sunday and Wednesday. Sunday in the mornings and Wednesdays in the evenings. But once in a while I'll do this, random, I'm going to throw it up there thing and hope people fly by and say hello, But yeah, it's very important information, casting up your circle, preparing it before you call in the guardians of the watchtowers. Also, when you're getting ready to erect the temple. I mean, it's very important to stay protected while you're doing it. And it's not so much for keeping negative out, although that is one of the important matters that it serves. But generally, it holds the energy in until you're ready to drop those walls and release your power to the direction that it was intended to go to begin with. So containing and holding all of that until the last minute when you've acquired all the energy that's needed, and then you drop the walls and you send it to its destined place so that it could have that impact that is desperately needed for that situation, especially if it's going to be for healing someone, or if it's a love situation, and you're wanting to impact the person that maybe you haven't seen for a while and it's bothering you big time or whatever. But casting up your temple is very important. I don't do it all the time. I do it primarily whenever I am doing a major ritual or a celebration or doing a Sabbath or Esbat. I mean, I don't always do it whenever I'm just creating a talisman or engraving a candle, although it can be helpful if you feel very dark and negative energies around you at that point in time. If you're feeling negative energy around you, it may be always wise to cast up your temple, to keep that out. You don't want anything interfering with the work that you're presently doing. So you would start lighting up your 4 candles to the 4 directions, and generally you're going to need things in this direction, this order. You would need your yellow, blue, red, and green candles that represent the north, south, east, and west, and they would be to the outside of your circle and into the directions that they're synonymous with. They're also synonymous with the purposes that you would call on the direction for, or the element for that purpose. Like if you're doing a love spell, you would pay more homage to the west and what it could do for you. But you're calling on all of them all the time, all 4 directions, for guarding your circle, but also, to make sure that nothing is going to interfere, that it's made peaceful on the outside. Also for shielding, in case you're trying to veil yourself from anything that would try to look in on you that would be a combatant. But first and foremost, you would get your 4 candles that are synonymous with the 4 directions. And that would be your yellow candle that would go to your east. It would be your blue candle that would go to your west, your red candle that would go to your south, and your green or brown candle that would go to your north. And those are alternatable. You know, brown and green, they represent earth, and earth is the element to the direction of the north. It would also be the position that your deities would be held in for the most part, unless you're one of the people that would like to have your masculine deity standing in the south and your feminine deity standing in your north. And you have different practitioners from many different walks or paths that may practice differently. But some or a lot of people would have both their masculine and feminine deity standing within the north. You know, likewise, you yourself, unless you're going to set in a primary position that is synonymous with the element you're calling in most, you may set within the west and have your altar facing the east if you're, conducting your practices for communicating with the deity so that it could bring the love of your life, the one that you need desperately to come to you, that perhaps somebody you already have, but they're distant and you need to fix a relationship, or calling to the deities for love that you would acquire through that ritual that you're actually doing. Brightest blessings, Tyson. How are you doing? The Dodalu. How do you want me to call you? Dodalu. Lisa. All of you guys, David, that are here today. It's nice to have you, and it's almost an entirely new crew compared to what I'm used to. There's only one person here today, and that's Lisa, that is a usual here in the room, and that's just very odd. But it's always good to see you guys, and it's new, fresh breath of air in here. Anyway, so basically you would set up your altar where you're setting, and facing the direction that you're wanting to lend homage to on that day. If you're calling to the element for love, you may either face your altar toward the west direction, or you yourself set in the west. But you're paying direct homage to the west for that matter, and for the north and healing, for stability or education, growth within yourself. You may either set within the north or face your altar toward the north. But you're making a statement in whatever it is that you're doing. To the Guardians of the Watchtower, Mitch, it's good to see you. And E. Kuntz, it's good to see you. You're new here, I think. And I think you've been in here once, haven't you? Well, thank you. It's good having you, E. Kuntz. Welcome to our chats. And we're talking about the elements and the directions, which way you would face your altar. And generally, whenever I give these, I like to set my altar up to where I am facing. The altar is in between me and the direction that I'm calling to for that responsibility that day. Yeah, I do remember you. But yes, I like to face my altar into the direction that I'm calling to for that day. And I like to sit where I'm facing that direction that I'm paying the most homage to on that day. Although I call to all of the guardians to the 4 directions, I like to lend special homage to a direction whenever I'm calling on a particular matter. Like I was saying, for the West, if I'm doing a love ritual, then I will face my altar between me and the west. And that means that I would be looking into the west when I'm doing this ritual, and my back would be toward the east. Some people are different, but this is, okay, Dodaloo. Anyway, so yes, I would generally have my back to the east, and I would have my facing toward the west, and my altar in between me and the west. And if I'm doing a spell work to heal somebody or heal myself, I would have my facing toward the north, and I would have my altar between me and the north, and my back would be toward the south. If I'm fixing to go into a battle and I'm needing victory, or I'm going to face an enemy, or if I'm fixing to undertake a bout of passion and love and passion, then I may be facing the south with my back to the north, and so on and so on. And so it's very important when we determine in the circle which way we're going to face. And a lot of times people will keep their altar facing toward the north, and some people their altar facing toward the east. And they're kind of set on that. And this is the old ways. But times and things change with people. Me being the eclectic person that I am, and always like to go against the grain, then I would be inclined to do something slightly different than those people that generally like to pick a certain set of ways. Glenn, it's good to see you. And you finally made it for a live stream. Brought us blessings. But yes, I like to face the direction that I'm calling to on that day for whatever purpose that's necessary. East for communication, generic magic practice, communication with other people that I'm about to undertake, an interview, something along that lines. Okay, for healing, for grounding, for growth within myself, education, getting a new job, then I will be facing the north. For matters of love, going on a first date, or trying to seal a deal on a relationship, or in matters of depth and subconscious, astral projection, meditation, I will face the west. South being, hey Jennifer, how are you doing? South I will be facing if I'm going to undertake a battle or facing an enemy or dealing with somebody that generally gets on my bad side and I want to victorize over that. Or going into a bout of passion where it's just sexually oriented. The South. Okay, and so that clarifying how I like to set up my altar generally, which isn't the big topic here today, but it's kind of good for me to spell that out for you so that I can go into, well, yeah, it is, because when you're casting up your altar and you're erecting your temple, that's where you're heading with things. And you have to know where you're going to set up your altar before you actually undertake that. So we're starting off in the good direction, and I'm doing good there. But Mitch says that she likes to point hers in the direction of the north. Does that mean that you like to sit with your back to the south and you like to face the north? Because there's so many ways that could be undertaken unless you spell it out for me. But either way, let's see, it's a hard name pronunciation. Do-da-lu. I'm going to call you Do. Is the O, is it Do or Do? Do. I think you're saying Do. That's cool. Anyway, yes, you like to sit with your back to the south and you're liking to face the north. And that means that you like a lot of stability, that you're grounding, that you like a lot of earth beneath you. Stability and foundation. That's generally who you are. You like to be stable in everything and know what's ahead. But, I like to change things up given the situation. Always call to the north watchtower first. And I always call to the, I always call to the one where I face my altar to, for whatever that particular thing is that I'm going to go into. But okay, setting up the circle, it's very important first that you have, if you are a typical steadfast Wiccan and you like to do things by the letter, then you're going to want 4 candles that you'll keep, and that is a yellow one, a green one, a blue one, which one did, and a red one. Okay, green, red, blue, and green, red, blue, and yellow. Sorry, I keep forgetting where I'm at. But the green one can be alternatable with brown. The green and brown would be synonymous with your north direction, and you could have either or. Your yellow one would be synonymous with the east. Your red would be synonymous with the south. And your west, blue. Blue would be synonymous with your west. You would need these 4 candles, and you would need to set them to the 4 directions that would be exterior of your circle that you're going to cast. First, you would obviously draw the circle lines so that you have a physical perimeter that you would adhere to. And these are mainly, the physical perimeter that you're laying out is just so that you'll know where you're at and you're not overstepping your circle. You're not breaking your own lines. You're not crossing into the unprepared area, etc. 4 candles. But you want to cast your physical circles first. I do mine with consecrated sea salt. And basically, you would take your sea salt, you would bless it, and you would pour it around in the amount due. Okay? And you would pour it around in the perimeter so that you would know exactly where you're at, and you leave an open doorway in the east always. East is the area at which you in turn leave in your circle by old standards. Once you have casted your physical lines of your circle down, some people will use consecrated sea salt, and that's exactly what I do. Some people will use a tape, like a masking tape, and draw out their circle with that. Some will simply lay out string or twine in the form of a circle to draw out their circle lines. Hey Jennifer, it's good to see you, and it's good to have you here joining in our show today. So these are ideas, and some people will use chalk on a hardwood or vinyl floor. Let's see, and these are good methods. But leave your doorway open in the east. That way you have the entrance and exit area until you get it done. See, some use rope, twine, and things of that nature. I use consecrated sea salt. Her dog eats the salt. That's funny. It's a very blessed dog you have indeed. My altar faces east. I call quarters starting at north, moving clockwise, ending with west. And so, see, we all have differences, and it's quite all right. Whatever you feel synonymous with, for sure. Should you always cast a circle when using a divination tool like a black mirror? When you're using a tool that opens up other dimensions, I would suggest you do. I use the tarot cards. I use mirrors a lot of the times, but I always cast a circle whenever I'm getting to use a tool like a mirror or a Ouija board, anything that actually opens dimensions. I don't cast a circle every time I use my tarot cards, every time I use runes, every time I cast, every time I use a crystal ball or anything like that. I don't generally cast a circle. But when you're using mirrors, you're dealing with doorways. When you're using a Ouija board, you're dealing with doorways. But not all your tools are doorways, really. They're communicational tools. I think that when somebody is very new at any kind of scrying, they should use a circle no matter what the tool is. At least for a while. And when they get used to what they're doing or how they're calling it, then they'll get a lot more formidable about it. They'll know more about what they're doing, and they'll watch their words more coherently, more on the spot. Because we do tend, when we get into the spirit of things, we do actually sometimes draw into, a kind of a high feeling, and we can lose our guard as to what we're saying or how we're saying it, or leave things out, and we can actually call generic entities and get ourselves into a spot of trouble. And people that are new definitely should watch what they're doing until they're, uh, you know, well learned in it. But anyway, casting the circle, how to cast it is really what we're going into now. So your 4 candles, which would be synonymous with the 4 direction, are important. And if you've forgotten what I've said, you can go back to the beginning of the video later on after it's archived, and you can watch it and get those colors again. But you would cast your circle first. You would put the 4 candles around the exterior perimeter into the direction that they're synonymous with. On the inside is where you would keep to the right hand side of your doorway. There would be an entrance and exit. You would put whatever item, whatever's left, to close your doorway up once you're finished. And you're not going out anymore. You want to be able to close that doorway and lock it down so nothing can come in. So whether it's more of the sea salt left over in a bowl, or it's a bit more of your twine or tape or rope, that you're leaving on the inside of the door, you want to keep it in the right hand side so that you can finish closing it up after you've saged, after you've consecrated it with your holy water, after you've lit the circle walls with white light to bring them up and keep all negative out. When you've completed your physical circle and you've consecrated it, you've got to close your doorway. You want your altar in there, of course, and you want everything that you would need inside as altar tools, depending on what your purpose is. And that is contingent on what your purpose is as to what you would choose to go in there. Now, Ekun says, could you have a permanent circle like a room with an opening in the east and possibly close the circle with salt or something else? And most people in that particular case would slide a staff over the doorway because that is synonymous with the east. If you're one of the people that practice in the ways of the old Golden Dawn sects, then they would use basically the sword, and it would be the element fire in the east instead of your wand or your staff, which is synonymous with air. Some of the people would practice with the wand and staff being in the east, and some people, and your dagger or sword being in the south. But then there are the others like myself that have the wand and staff in the east in the other direction. I mean, it depends. And I think a lot of people that are in England and so forth, they like to practice in alternate positions than what I do. But in the old Golden Dawn traditions, your staff and your wand would be synonymous with the south, and your dagger and sword would be synonymous with the east. But a lot of people like myself practice with your wand and your staff being synonymous with the east instead, and your dagger or sword with the south. And it depends on who you are and how you practice. Nonetheless, if you're casting a permanent circle down in an altar room that stays put and nobody would be inclined to mess with that, you can keep it up. And you would just slide your staff or your wand over that doorway opening, and that's all you would need. Or if you are practicing with the sword and the dagger in the east instead, you would slide your dagger or sword over the east doorway, and it's that simple. But you can always keep it up. However, do realize that you should always still consecrate the inside of your circle, even if you have a permanent perimeter drawn. So go in there, and you would start with your sage smudge wand. You definitely have to have that. Alright? And so you would go through that. And that is consecrating all the spirits that are in the air. Carrying my words on air and let them be heard. Cast out of all that is dark, negative, or evil. Be it known that if you're here, I'm waging war upon you and you might want to leave. That's the statement you're wanting to make with your sage smudge wand. And you're walking around the circle 3 times, starting in the east, on the right hand side of your already open doorway. And you're circling around. And you're casting all the dark and negative spirits out with your words. I cast all the dark and negative and evil that are within this place. I cast you from this place, for you are not welcome here. Begone in the name of the almighty deities, or begone in the name of Diana, Cernunnos, Aphrodite, Isis, Osiris, whoever. Begone in the name of the almighty deities, blessed be, so mote it be, so be it, be demanding, be commanding. Okay, and you would just cast them out with your sage smudge wand. Waging war on the spirits that are within the air. Then you want to make it more steadfast. After you've gone 3 bouts with the sage smudge wand, you would rest your sage smudge wand in its holder, and then you would pick up your holy water. You would pick up your holy water, and then you would start making 3 turns, starting in the east side on the right hand side of the doorway, and going around your circle 3 times, casting out all that is dark, negative, and evil, all that is unwanted. And if you're practicing in the dark and negative side of things, then you would do the opposite. You would use different things that would draw the spirits in instead that are negative or evil, and you would practice that way. Let's see. And Doe says, what are your thoughts on black salt? I don't really work with black salt a lot. Some people say that it's good for cleansing and purification. And I've used it in order to keep out the hardest of demons. And so I think that it's a really, really good thing to do, especially when you're putting your intents in it properly. And depending on what ingredients you use, and different people make black salt differently. With me, I add a little bit of blood in it from my finger. I'll pinprick my finger. I'll add a little bit of blood into it. I'll use charcoal, and I'll use some ingredients of patchouli and sage and so forth. But all of this is important to me whenever I'm creating it, and I really only use it whenever I'm putting a seal on something that is extremely, extremely negative. So that's the only way that I've ever used it, but I think it's a very, very powerful thing. As far as being able to put it all around the entire circle, I think that it could be very expensive, to say the least, and probably not as warranted unless you're up against something very heavy that you're fighting, But, there is also a very evil counterpart to that. If you're a very dark and negative practitioner, you might make it in a very, very different way and use it reversely. Now, I don't feel that when you cast your circle, going clockwise is always the best answer, and that if you ever went counterclockwise, it means you're doing something evil. People are under a wrong impression with that, because in witchcraft in the oldest days there wasn't a defining line as to what was negative, dark, or evil, holy or unholy, etc. Basically, whether you drew your circle backwards or forwards was contingent on the phase of the moon, whether it was declining, whether it was waning, or whether it was growing and waxing. Or if you were making or unmaking something. If you're taking a spell apart, or if you're putting one together. These are very, very important things to know when you're casting any circle. They're going to be very important knowledges. When you're breaking a spell, you go backwards, and you would do it in the waning moon. If you're creating a spell work that requires a lot of power, or something to grow or come into being, you would do it in the waxing moon generally. And when when you feel that it's at its highest, of course. So it's very important to take all of this into consideration. You know. But you're also going to want, on your altar, you're going to want candles that represent the god and goddess, or statues that represent the god and goddess. And if you're using candles to represent them, you may want to use gold that represents the god, and silver that would represent the goddess, or black that would represent the goddess, or white that would represent the god. And you, of course, would have your typical altar tools, which are explained in one of my other videos, Lady Leeanna's private pagan altar room. That's a very good video for you to watch to know what kind of tools would be good for you to have on your altar. And so that would be important for you to watch as far as setting up the actual altar that would be present within the circle that you're creating. You know. But yes, you would, to erect the temple, and what that means is raising your temple walls, saging and cleansing and purifying it before you actually do this. You would leave the circle open first and foremost until after you've saged it, you've holy watered it, blessed it with the holy water, until you've drawn the lines with your athame or athame, whichever way you want to call it, and your dagger or your sword. Now your blade, whether you're using a dagger or sword, you would typically use with your left hand when you're going clockwise. When you're going counterclockwise, you would use your wand or your staff. Okay? So you would make your way around, holding one in your left hand and pointing it at your circle's perimeter, and one in the air while you're drawing power from above and directly into you and through your body, and then directing it out down your other arm and into your tool that is in the left hand and out and into the circle walls as you walk around 3 times, appointing light and into your circle's walls. And you would do this 3 times as you did the saging, as you did the holy water. And at the end, you would raise your arms up to indicate that the power was to reach from below and to above as high as it would. Now, a lot of times, a person to do the circle walls will sit in the direct center of their temple and expand a white light from inside themselves out and into flood their circle with a kind of a bubble that would hold everything in. Me, I like to do it straight up and leave the top open that goes as high as the higher power so that they can make their way to and from us. Yes, I see. I guess I can't use my stage name. It's always wise that you choose a name, numerologically speaking, that a lot of people don't have knowledge of. That way, they can't use it against you. For anyone that knows your magical name has a power that they can use against you. Thank you for what? What did I do? Did I get in trouble here? Tyson says thank you, and I'm not sure what he's thanking me for. Let's see. Did I miss it? Should you always cast a circle when using a divination tool like a black mirror? Like I said, basically you do want to on certain things especially. A black mirror or regular mirror, you're opening doorways and portals there that could go to the other realms, and it could be very dangerous there if you don't have a circle around you that's purified and created. Certain other tools can be also as dangerous, such as your Ouija board if you use one. But there are a lot of tools that are not so dangerous and you're not opening a portal with that. And that would be your crystal ball, your runes, your tarot cards, things of that nature. Hey Patricia, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Always a pleasure, for sure. And today we're casting our circle We're going through the motions, talking about what you need to erect your temple. Pardon me. And so basically, you would either walk around the perimeter of your circle, you would raise your wand or your staff in your right hand if you're going in a clockwise motion to erect your temple. And you would have your dagger or your sword, your blade in the left hand, and you would point it at the lines of your circle with the left hand. You would draw down, "Hey Tattooed, how are you doing? Love and light to you." Anyway, and you would have your wand or your staff in your right hand and raising it high to draw down power into your circle with. And you would be walking around 3 times around your perimeter, lighting your temple walls, and then watching it as it raises to the sky as high as it can go. Or you would be sitting in the center of your circle and you would take a light that extends from your spirit, your soul, and expand it out as you make it larger and filling your entire room. It depends on which way you want to go about it, and any way is good. Just whatever resonates mostly for you. I'm doing good. Thank you very much. And welcome for your first time I've ever seen you in here. Welcome to our chats. It's good to have you. But anyway, that is how you do your 3 primary things that you must do in erecting your temple. Okay, now you've got your 4 candles on the outside. Your yellow, green or brown. They're alternatable. Blue and yellow, which are synonymous with your your 4 directions. You've got your consecrated circle created. You've got your sage, your holy water, and you've got a dagger and a wand. Or if you don't have your tools yet, oh, you've changed your name. Why didn't you tell me that to begin with, David? Now I don't know what the hell to call you, and you've just shook my whole world up, and now I'm like just totally lost and disconnected. Anyway, I'm just picking with you. But now I don't know what to call you. Damn. Shame on you. Anyway, so basically, you could use your fingers if you don't have your tools yet. And don't let that make it where you're not doing what you would do. And if you don't have your tools yet, you could always do what I did in the very beginning whenever I didn't have any tools. And I went outside and I found me a branch that had fallen to the ground. I got you, Bulldog. Or Harley. And a lot of times I call you that. I've always called you Harley, though, I think. Anyway, you can go out and you could get a fallen branch off the tree. And you could use it temporarily, or you could gradually make it your own when you realize how much power you've already put into it. And you could take a regular kitchen knife, but make it the nicest one that catches your eye. Or find something, from a resale shop or something, and make it your temporary athame or whatnot. That's what I did in the very beginning when I didn't have any tools. And I ended up keeping my first one because it was weird anyway. It was a silver-handled kitchen knife. And that thing today will set off EVP detectors and shit like that. It's just really weird. So I kept it and made it one of my knives. It's actually not my athame, but it takes the place of my white-handled knife, which was basically for chopping up herbs and stuff like that. Where my athame is a ritual dagger and not for physical works. But, so if you don't have your tools, you can use those. Get you a branch from a fallen branch from a tree, and get you a kitchen knife that you could temporarily use. Just bless and cleanse them before you use them. And then empower them. And welcome, if nothing else, them into your temple for a temporary. So you should start with something like that. And your incense burner, you're going to want something like that, even if it's an ashtray starting off or whatnot. So erecting your temple is pretty easy. It really is. And you should be at one with using whatever you've got at the beginning. It doesn't have to be that specific. My first few times I actually used white candles to my 4 directions. I used any old candle holders at the beginning. Now I have very specific ones that I use. And let's see. For your altar candles themselves, you would want, if they're going to represent the god and goddess, you would want gold and silver. Gold to represent the masculine, silver to represent the feminine, or black to represent the feminine, and white to represent the masculine. You know, and you're going to want whatever holders you can use. Just bless and cleanse anything that you're going to use on your altar, even if it's all temporary stuff. You know, that way you can feel synonymous with it and at one with yourself when you're doing it, because you don't want to get in there and feel awkward. And you can get in there and you can start doubting all the things that you're using right off the first. I know a couple of times I did in the beginning. And it's not real good to go into your works doubting yourself, feeling a little unstable or any of that. I have a question. In a protection circle, does it have to be a 5-pointed circle? No, I never use a 5-pointed circle. That's all show and tell to me. You know, people like to do that, but generally they're calling to the 4 directions, not the 5 elements. However, I've seen them do it. You know, it depends on what you're synonymous with, but do you know that 98% of all the people I've ever heard of them, they don't lay a 5-pointed star circle. They lay a 4-cornered circle. Let's see. I call to the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. Spirit would then likewise be in Akasha where it actually belongs anyway. And so the spirit would lay in the center in this particular case as an element. I've never seen anybody cast a 5-pointed star circle. So do it to the 4 directions and have Akasha in the very center, which would be your fire pit. Or some people said their altar up in the very center. Okay? And some people have set their altar up to whatever direction they're going to call to for that session, and they themselves would have their butt setting in the circle center. So it really depends on what you feel, but I've not really seen anybody cast a 5-pointed star circle. I've not seen it. You know, not saying that it would be wrong if that's the way you wanted to do it. North, south, east, and west, and Akasha in the center, which would be spirit. In the center, I mean, that makes sense. Pardon me a minute. Acid reflux bothering me a lot. And so that would be your best way. And it seems to me that that's the way you're doing it anyway, is casting it in the 4 directions because you're aware of it. Let's see, although you are aware of the 5-pointed star circle method, but I mean, that is, to me, that's when somebody wants to be a lot of show and tell, you know, or if there's a large group coming together and they want to do something extremely specific, but that doesn't make it any more or less. No, I've never heard of traditionally them practicing with a 5-pointed star circle. Even traditionally. Any of the Gerald Gardner methods in the oldest days, when they resurrected Wicca out of hiding, that's the only way I've ever actually heard it used, to tell you the truth. As if it were to do with satanic method and they were wanting the goat's head present within their circle. You know. Of course, you know, I mean, that is an option if you want to practice on the darkest side of things. You know, laying out the Satanist method. But I don't think necessarily it has to be either at the same token. Because generally, you're talking about the 5 senses of man when you're talking about the pentagram and whatever method you're laying out. It was only said to be different when someone wanted to make it reverse of the original star and turn it inverted. You know, so whenever they want the five-headed, the 5 points in representation of the goat, then they might do it that way. But I've never seen actual basic pagans lay out a 5-pointed star, and I never heard it being the traditional way. Even in the oldest books, and remember in witchcraft, in the oldest days there were no books out. It was all information that was pressed down from mother to child or father to child. It was all done that way. It was never written in books because people would be afraid they would be lynched. So there were never books on it. But in Wicca, whenever it was resurfaced, it was by some of the oldest writers, which would be Gerald Gardner and Margaret Murray, and any of them that I've ever read from. They were doing the 4 corners circle. That was the 4 directions. That's where I learned from in 1983, was from the oldest books. Complete Book of Witchcraft, Witchcraft, what was it? Living Wicca, all of those. A lot of books still get burnt today by parents that would find them in their kids' room, unfortunately. I've heard of people that got home after being on vacation and to have their parents say, "Your books, we burnt them." When the kids started looking for their books. Or even adults that lived with their parents likewise. So we still fall under that thing right there, where our books could be burned out from under us. Never a pleasant thing whatsoever. But anyway, you have a firm grasp of what you may need to erect your temple. Your 4 candles synonymous with the 4 directions. Your 2 candles on the altar that would symbolize the god and goddess. Or if you have statues that symbolize the god and goddess, 1 candle which would be a kind of an offering candle to the god and goddess, which would be purple instead. Okay. You would have your statue of the god and goddess if you don't use the candles to represent them. And you don't have to have either, but most people like to have them. Midwives were accused a lot of times of being witches, and a lot of times witches were those midwives, but the old knowledges and wisdoms, a lot of them were erased by us being driven underground for so long. And then Wicca was an attempt of resurrecting witchcraft, in my mind, under a safer name, because under the name witchcraft or witch, we had already been burned and tortured. And so it was important when they resurrected witchcraft, they were resurrected in a different name. And so that's why I feel, to a large degree, witchcraft and Wicca could be said to be the same thing in a lot of ways, or by different people. However, since it was resurrected and under a different name of Wicca, it took unto itself a different understanding on how to do things, and more ritual was added to it, where witches in the oldest days weren't so much about the ritual as they were about getting things done, and how this was a way of life, not so much a religion. And Wicca was resurrected as more of a spiritual, religious thing than what it was as witchcraft. How would I do a circle to cleanse my tools if I don't have the room to do it in? Well, you have to make a space. Or you have to go in the woods. You don't have to have a room to make your circle in. I have a physical public shop here that people walk in all the time. And I make my circle here in the center of my floor when I don't have anybody around. When I close my shop, I'll make my circle in the center of my floor, and it becomes that temple whenever I erect it. whenever I cleanse it with the sage, whenever I cleanse it with the holy water, when I set my altar up in the center of it. Then and only then is it actually a temple. But you don't have to have a room specifically made for that. A lot of us don't, And then whenever you really, really want a place that's away from humans and hasn't been touched by humans, then you just simply have to go out in the woods and set up an altar there out in the forest or something, or out in a valley or field. That's always a good idea. An altar can be whatever you want it to be. Generally, a lot of us use a kitchen table whenever other rooms of our houses are in use by somebody for whatever purpose. And that's why it's always good to have a mobile unit, if you want to call it so. It is good to have a room if you can afford it, if you have a house that's big enough that nobody touches. But a lot of us don't have that. And it's never good, really, to leave your altar set up all the time in a public area or house, because you have the dangers of people touching your tools and desanctifying them, or making them feel dirty to you because they shouldn't have touched your stuff. That's what I miss, is being out in the woods in Oregon. Less people. Yeah, and then sometimes having the convenience of people around and more things around you can also be good likewise. But, it is what it is whenever it is, and you make it what it can be when you do. And basically, you have to just be comfortable with your surroundings, no matter what you have to do to make them comfortable. But by all means, make them you. Set it up in the way that you feel right, so that when you go and you sit down within that circle, then you're comfortable. You know that you're home, because from there on out, once you sit down inside that circle, you've got to be there and at one with the subject you're there for, with the purpose that you're assembling your circle, you're erecting your temple for. It's all very, very important. And it's not hard to draw a synonymity with your space, but it may take a little background music for ambience. It's going to take a little incense for a little aromatherapy for cleansing. It's going to take a little mellow, coloring around you. Nothing bright or eye-catching that could distract you. It's got to be a place where nobody is in, if you can get it, for the time being, because any sounds can distract you and really wreck your brain. I live in a condo, so I have to share my room, and there are no woods. You're going to have to choose a corner for that time and deconstruct your temple every time, and we do it all the time here. We have to do what we can do, But, make it you. Do the best you can to make it feel right to you whenever you do it. And that's the only choice you've got. And nobody can change that but you. And for the time that it needs to be changed. Me, I live in my shop right now. My house is being constructed out of my shop. And there's always the danger of someone knocking at my door and destructing all the energy that I'm creating should I cast a circle and start erecting my temple. And so I have to choose accordingly to that as to what I do or whenever I do it. And it happens that I have to wait till the later hours of the night to cast my circle when my business is closed and when most of my clients know that my shop would be closed, so they wouldn't be as inclined to knock on my door and distract my circle that I'm doing. And so we have to learn to work with our space. It's just the way it is. Let's see. Patricia said, David says, or Harley, I like to celebrate the holidays and special occasions by setting an altar piece. And it would be, I'm sure, synonymous with the season or the cross quarters or the quarters, whatever it is that you're celebrating, the god or goddess that's involved. I found my magical name using numerology, and that's how I found mine too, Lisa. then dedicated myself to the gods and goddesses under that name. And that's the usual way by old Wicca standards, old pagan standards for that matter, is to find your pathway first and foremost, to start studying on it and become more one and knowledgeable with it. To dedicate yourself after you know enough about it to know that that's what you want. And then you would be put generally on a year and a day pathway of understanding, which would be a time variable that signified that you would be studying only this thing, or one particular idea of it, like only the gods and goddesses, or only the spiritual aspect of that religious pathway. And you would find a numerologically found name that you would not be going around sharing it with just anybody, except if you have a high priest or high priestess, maybe them. And you would keep it to yourself otherwise until you are being rebirthed under that name, either dedicated or initiated under it. And at that point in time, you would come out with that name, but only to your society, your covenant, the people that will be practicing closely with you, unless you're solitary. And then you just keep it to yourself and undertake that name in ritual for yourself at that night that you would be either dedicated or initiated. And a lot of people would choose to hold off and acquire that name when they're initiated rather than dedicated, although you could do it either or. And so numerologically, that's how I found, and how a lot of us old people within the pathways found our pagan name. And it's a good way of doing it. It's based on power, and it's deeper in your understanding of it, and it makes you feel more synonymous with it. Likewise, you can still choose in the beauty of it by simply trying out the different names you like until you've worded it in such a way that the letters are synonymous with the numbers. You know, and I've got a video already on this channel to do with choosing your name numerologically. Okay, and so you should seek that out and find your own name. But yes, this is about choosing names. You know, this is something that you would do after you've been studying for a while, and when you're ready to dedicate yourself to a particular pathway, or maybe to a particular set or a particular deity. Okay, a particular pantheon or a particular deity. You know, this is what you might do, and that is acquiring a name in ritual to them with the understanding that from now on you're going to be studying that particular pathway or that deity. Well, that's good. That's good, Glenn. It's good to see you. But anyway, you know, pretty much we've covered everything as far as setting up your altar and your temple place. Erecting your temple, it's not very hard. It's a matter of taking the trifold walk around the circle that you created physically, leaving the door open in the east side, and something beside it to close it with whenever you've completed the consecration of it. And then you call it complete at the end of all your consecrational tasks and lighting the walls and bringing up your white ball of light that would cover it, or erect the walls to it. And then you would begin to call the four quarters, the guardians of the watchtower, and that's what we'll cover tomorrow. You know, and that's really all you need. And you could even be sitting in there with only a libation of tea and a cup for you and the God system, and maybe a saucer with a piece of bread on it for you and a piece of bread on it for the God system, and a libation dish. It doesn't require a lot. You don't have to have everything. You know, I've got a video on here somewhere that outlines what would be good to start with if you can acquire it, but generally you don't have to have anything, just yourself and the God system. it is good to consecrate your area, especially when you're new and just beginning them. It's written in runes in my Book of Shadows. And I found mine in the Book of Runes, I actually wrote mine in runes the first time too, and put it in what I thought was going to be my Book of Shadows. But since then, I never wrote in my Book of Shadows, and I found that my Book of Shadows was tucked inside of me for the most part. And throughout history in my past life regressions, whenever I get ready and need a spell work for something, I call on the past, and it's just automatically there. And so that is what really works for me. But runes, writing your name in runes is always a good practice in the beginning, and to put it on your books, that way somebody won't have a power over you. And so that's a good subject. I've actually covered that in creating sigils and creating numerologically a name for yourself. That all goes pretty much with that. But you got to be very careful about who you share your pagan name with, because that's why we do it. People would have power over us if they have our complete real name, and they have any grievances with us and they want to cast up some dark magic on us. However, if you create a new witchy name or a new pagan name, and you only go by that in circle, then it erases that bond with your old name, and generally they won't have as much of a power over you, because you don't feel as synonymous with your regular name within magic. Let's see, yes, I have my own sigil. Yeah, and I created mine too a long time ago, but it was more for my covenant, not for me particularly. And that was Covenant Shadow Insights, created with the Wicca shrooms, and it kind of created the peace sign out of itself. And it was pretty cool. But does everybody have any questions on how to erect the circle, erect your temple? And without it being about calling to the guardians of the watchtower, to the gods and goddesses, because that's what we'll cover tomorrow, actually, on my Sunday morning video. Generally, have yourself some sage or incense for purification. Have yourself some holy water. Have yourself the 4 candles that are synonymous with the 4 directions. Have yourself something to create your physical circle walls with, and also something that you'll slide across the doorway whenever you're done. Have yourself your altar that is set up in the center if you intend to use one, or at least have your tea and your libation if all you're going to do is go in there and be at one with the God system and communicate with them and meditate. Otherwise, you want something that represents your God and Goddess, whether it's statues that represent them or the candles. You want, let's see, if you have them, anathema or sword, or a wand or staff, if you have them. If not, you can use a regular kitchen knife. Just make sure you cleanse and purify it, and make sure it's the best one you feel synonymous with in your kitchen. And on the other side of things, then you may have a broom or besom if you don't have your wand or staff. Or you could go out and pick out a one that's laying underneath a group of trees, cleanse and purify it, and make your own, if nothing else, for temporary work. Angie, coming in at the very end of things. How are you doing today? It is good to see all of you guys, at least dropping in, if nothing else, toward the end of the show. Does anybody have any questions about drawing up your circle, erecting the temple? And that is going without to do with calling on the deities or calling on the 4 guardians of the watchtower, because we start that tomorrow on Sunday on our meeting that we have early in the morning at 10. We'll cover that more then. Also, let's see. Does anybody see the list of who all is in the room right now? There are 3 dots at the top. Can anybody tell me who all is in, let's see, our room and who isn't right now? Because I'm checking to see if Austin is in the room or not. For my own reasons. Don't want him to be sneaky, you know what I'm saying? And I'll ask, Austin, are you in the room with us today? Glenn's here. I know Glenn's here. Right, but you know the simplest ways of erecting your temple is the best way. It really is. I mean, making it as simple as, you want to get in under the power of your higher power before you start erecting the temple, so you can just dance around and do it just so rhythmically, and you can either use sound or you can use sage to cleanse and purify your circle's air before you get going with the holy water. Are you leaving us, Kuntz? Are you on your way out? It's been good having you. Worrying about doing it wrong because it's not complicated. If you want, you could dance around and you could throw so much energy around on your light side of things that nothing would want to be there. Just bless it so much of love that it don't. Well, come back and see us whenever you can again. It was good to have you. And follow me on Facebook if you get a chance under Eclectic Spiritualist. Okay, that's the name I go under on Facebook, is Eclectic Spiritualist. And if you don't have a Facebook, then you can follow us on Twitter or under Eclectic Spirituality. But it was good seeing you, Kuntz. Let's see. No, I don't want to go into that yet. Like I said, that would be a talk for tomorrow. Tomorrow. We will go into the calling of the quarters, finishing of the erecting of the temple, doing that tomorrow. Because we're already at 1 hour and 12 minutes. Let's see. But yes, earth, air, fire, and water. And then there's Akasha or spirit. And basically, you would want to set your altar up either to that direction, or if you're a person that sets up your altar, bright blessings to you too, and you take care of yourself. Set up your altar either in your permanent direction, or set up your altar to face the direction that you're going to call to for that ceremony. It's all very important. I feel that we've pretty much covered all of this, except for the call of the guardians, which is what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. And it's very, very important that you call to the guardians of the watchtower. But I really don't want to start that this late in the show. We've really just kind of threw up this particular video real quick, this particular live stream. It wasn't expected. And so we're very low in people today, and really I started it, I was going to start it earlier, but then there was a lot of people that kept knocking on the door, and I kept getting distracted, and so I went right out of doing a reading for people into doing this video, and so I'm really, really high right now from a lot of energy and power. Am I? I didn't know that. But it is important to do. It really is. But you guys, I guess I'm going to get off of here for now. I've been on and doing this video for 1 hour and 14 minutes now. Peace and blessings to you, Harley. And you take care of yourself. Changing your name and throwing everybody off. Nobody knows who you are. And it's hard to get used to now calling you a different name. But right after this, I'm going to a full moon ritual with the Covenant Well, that's cool. I mean, just wear an amulet that could help protect you or guard you from other people's energy unless you know them really well. Always good to keep yourself preserved or not let in negative energy if it could be there. But that's good. That's great. I'm glad you're getting involved with the communities out there. I feel that that's very, very important to communicate with other people. You know, because otherwise it could be a very lonely pathway. You know, so many people are in the closet and they're so lonely because they have nobody to talk to with it. You know, but getting together and functions with other pagans is important, I think. But yes, we're going to be doing another show in the morning, our usual Sunday morning program. And we're going to be talking about the calling of the guardians when erecting the temple and calling to the higher power. I think these are very important, but it's more important to cleanse and purify the ground, erect the temple before you call to the gods and goddesses to make sure that the ground is holy, because you wouldn't want to not throw out the red carpet for the gods and goddesses, and you wouldn't call them into an unsanctified place. You know, and that's what today was about. Getting the place cleansed and purified so that you could feel okay with calling the gods and goddesses at that time. And that's what we do tomorrow. Today was cleansing and purifying and making your temple for them. Tomorrow will be about calling into the higher power. And that's going to be a good topic. So don't forget to join us tomorrow. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Facebook under Eclectic Spiritualist. And by all means, please like the video and share the video around with other people that you know on your social media so we can continue growing. It would be very appreciable. Also, you know, I'm going to be starting to do a lot with the Austin birthday situation. I want a lot of people to participate, and so far I've only got 2 people to donate to Austin, and I'm trying to let him know that he has a lot of friends even if he doesn't know it. And I want as many people to become as involved with this as possible. And there's going to be a little party going on here at the house, and the live stream party going on at the same time, where all of you guys are also welcome to be a part of it, at which time he will be given the gift at which all of you guys chipped in for, whoever does chip in for it. So if you need that information, go to Facebook and you'll have it there. The information and how you can donate, or any donations that you actually make to the channel, or anything on any of the places you can find the donation links, which is under all my videos, will go to his birthday and be considered as part of his birthday at that point in time. So that would be helpful. It really will. And an address is actually provided on my website and on Facebook, at which if you wanted to send a present to him personally, you could use that address and send it by the regular postal service or UPS or FedEx or whatever. All that information is on and being shared on my Facebook. So anyway, you guys, I will see you later. You take care of yourself and don't forget to join us tomorrow. Brightest blessings, and bye-bye.